Schmallenbach, and I am talking to you on behalf of Quest, Quality Education in Europe for Sustainable Social Transformation. My colleague Martina wrote the Desk Erasmus Plus project involving 10 partners among public and democratic schools within 5 different countries. The aim was to create a dialogue that would help democratic schools gain legitimacy in the eyes of public authorities, and at the same time that would allow public schools to start moving towards becoming more democratic. But then Martina and I found out about one school in Europe that has opened a completely democratic section within its grounds, a school within a school, so to speak, and we were extremely curious about it. That's why we traveled to Suvemae school in Tallinn, Estonia, so that we can find out how they made this possible.
Where could that be? Public? Democratic.
It's basically, I don't know, Charlie likes putting up posters of like bullying you, or I'm touching you, or I'm calling you names, then you say stop, or lõpeta, or like other things. Freedom.
Yes,
You
but
have
we
to take
still
some
have our freedom.
responsibility.
We still have our freedom. And basically, the mandatory classes are math, Estonian, English, Russian, / French. That's Tallinn's map. Right here, this tiny house.
That's where we are now.
Yeah.
I'm Charlie Moreno. I'm the head of studies of Suvemäe. Tallinna Kunstigümnaasium is a democratic branch within a public school in Estonia. We have been working during the last 3 years on this project, and this is our 4th year. We are serving around 75 students from different backgrounds, and we call ourselves democratic in the sense that we make decisions together with the kids. We try to see the human being, the person, beyond the hierarchical roles that are associated to schooling. We engage in the development of learning skills, but also through the abandonment of grades, rather working on formative assessment and formative feedback. As John Holt would say, that one size does not fit them all. We are different, our children are different. It's truly important that we support their growth from the perspective of being within a community, but also from the perspective of differentiated inclusion, which is a coined term by Andreas Hinz in Germany. That means that people need to get the tools to deal with their own challenges, and that again, one size does not fit them all. We totally agree that there should be a minimum academic requirement, but we cannot forget that human growth and development is not only about academic learning, but it has to do also with emotional well-being and with social skills. So our work is oriented towards that area to elevate social skills, social intelligence and emotional well-being to the same level of academic performance. Challenges, there are thousands of them, but it's truly important to keep on open communication with the local authorities, with the families, to listen to the families, to listen to the kids, and to try to find together solutions. In that sense, I think that during these 3.5 years, we have adopted flexibility as one of our values, the same as caring, meaning that every person within Suvemäe, it's a member of a community and needs to be taken care, nourished, supported in multiple ways. So I don't believe that every public school or every school needs to adopt democratic education, but I do feel that it should be an alternative to those families and kids who understand development and growth in a more organic perspective, and also take into account that the learner is a subject that needs to learn how to take control and responsibility over their learning, whatever it is, from math to carpentry to how to speak in public, how to care about others.
When I got to know Charlie, I said to Charlie, look, what we need is that in some state schools, the teachers are desperate for good ideas. How do you introduce democracy? How do you make it work in a state school? And I had two ideas at the time. One was that all schools should allocate 20% of curriculum time, 1 day a week, to the interests, concerns, questions, passions of the students, of the young people. The other way forward, when I talked it over with Charlie, I told Charlie about the schools within a schools in the United States, the Kohlbergian ideas, where instead of having 20% of self-directed time, you had a school within a school where the whole mini school functioned in a democratic, self-directed way. And we got on very well. I have great admiration for Charlie. What I love about Charlie, he's got a PhD in democratic education, but he's got a warm, supportive, firm, he's not a walkover, but he has the skills for relating to kids with all sorts of backgrounds and difficulties and talents. So when I heard that the principal of the Arts Gymnasium in Tallinn was prepared to let Charlie start a democratic unit, a school within a school, at the Arts Gymnasium, I thought, wow, what an opportunity. I'd heard of Mary-Lill Sudds as being a very progressive, go-ahead head teacher. When I looked at the website of the Arts Gymnasium, she is describing the approach of she's saying that the democratic branch is one of the options for parents, and she describes it in very radical terms. She describes it as it is, and I'm impressed because I've been in Charlie's position of trying to create something within a fundamentally teacher-directed context, trying to create something democratic, but I've also been on the other end of it. I've been vice principal and acting principal with radical young teachers wanting to do things that I didn't want to stop them. I wanted to encourage them. At the same time, they were creating political problems for me, problems with other teachers, partly. So I'm aware of the skillful way in which the head teacher in Tallinn has managed the overall context. We need more people like her in positions of power to share a bit of their power with a creative pilot project. We need more of them.
And when I started 8 years ago, then my goal was to have 30% of the timetable for children to choose. So that was my goal. I have reached my goal. It happened, I think, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And then we were doing already so much, like the lesson of interest and the project days, and so this was just another possibility. As we have like A, B, C classes, then this was just a democratic education class. So we just opened it. Education can be democratic for children, but the staff and everything, we have to follow the orders of the law and curriculum, and so this is, I think, the hardest point for the people who have a mindset of democratic education, that they still have to do all the bureaucracy part. I thought that maybe there will be the lazy pupils who will be going there, but really it was those pupils who knew that they didn't want to do repetition in the classroom, they didn't want to wait for the others who are slower. So everybody who went to democratic education were those that learned very fast on their own, did stuff quickly, and then they had free time for their interest and their sports or music or whatever. When we opened the democratic education branch, because everybody else also thought in Tallinn that it will be a special needs student school, but really it was the other way around. So every year I think about the shift is 5 to 10 pupils.
And why? What were the main reasons why they came back?
They want structured learning. They understand that they cannot cope on their own. But this is a very, very good thing that the children understand, because now they value more the learning here and the teacher's work. Yeah, a lot of people will not believe that it is the right way to go.
Yes. So you get more opposition from other teachers or from the parents? Where does the pressure?
No, you get from the government officials or like policymakers or those who are doing who are checking your school or whatever, the officers or whatever. So they don't. Yeah, the biggest problem is like from there. And the funding is also a problem, because in democratic education we have like there's a coach for, they have on lesser students, like in our ordinary system, so we pay over it. So it doesn't, the funding, and as we are a public school, then they get more funding than our ordinary classes from me. Yep. It's my selection to give that more money, but really the government doesn't fund it.
Probably I'm more of a social person now, and I'm actually really glad that I came here, because I've been like changing into more of a social person, and I'm not scared of speaking anymore.
Maybe you saw it like how we do the Suvemäe, that is our school circles. We try to participate as many students to decide like what are needed for things. If anything goes wrong, then how do we tackle with that? So it's about like the building or making the students social. Nowadays we find the students being alone, being engaged in their telephones, isolated from the society. So the task is also not just to teach them about the books, because they can do themselves, but we want to involve them in the other different aspects of the life.
I left Iraq when I was 4, I like 2011, because there was a bombing going on, and my parents were like, we cannot stay here, we have to leave, because there was like always war, poverty, and also the education was like really bad. Like Iraq, I had to leave. All my friends there in Turkey, I had to leave like over like a lot of friends. In Greece, I had to leave a lot of friends. And in here, I'm gonna probably have to leave my friends too. That's what I'm like most scared about. These kind of schools are so important, because like it gives up opportunity to like kids to be free, like actually express themselves. I feel like so much better expressing myself here, my opinions, my style, my everything, like my interest. My interest is psychology, and at the schools there, they're like, you can't be that. You can stop thinking so big, and especially in the normal schools, they would preach about mental health and how we should follow our dreams. But the second we do, they don't care. They're like, you can't do that. Why would you do that? Focus on your studies. And for the mental health part, they don't care that much. Even if they care, they don't do anything, especially when it comes to bullying. I told them multiple times, like, I'm getting bullied. The kids said that to me. They just like told the kids, don't do that, or you will call your parents, and nothing else. Here, if somebody's bullying me, we all gather, like it's kind of like a court or something. I was so surprised how everybody's like confident enough to just say their opinions, and I was, oh my god, this is amazing, because everybody has a voice. Nobody has to be scared of getting ignored. Nobody gets ignored there.
Here, there really isn't a dumb question, so I've been more able to like ask questions or ask for help, here than I was in a regular school. If there's a conflict, we will talk about it. We have a system where it goes from individually, where there's the people that are in a conflict, and then an adult. We have an older student helping out. Then we take it to class level, where we have a small circle where it's like divided by classes. If it doesn't work out there either, then we go to the bigger circle that is like the whole school. So we talk about with the whole school. It's a lot better than the old process, which we had a separate circle where if there was a conflict, we'd deal it there. But it got very like stressful over the years because people would make fake reports and stuff and fake things and be like, oh, never mind, I don't actually want to do this. But with this new system, there's a lot less of that, and if there is a conflict, it will be less like, oh, individually, like get it done quickly, and then we don't have to worry about it anymore.
I actually came to this school this year. It's my first year here. So far, I really like it. It's a little bit confusing. I understand it's not for everyone, but it's more independent. So a lot of students won't manage the school. It will be too difficult to learn on their own. The thing is here that you have to make yourself study. Some students won't go to classes, won't study willingly. These are the students that should probably go back to more public school, more graded, more regulated.
Before I was in this school, I was in a typical school, and overall just the teachers were very difficult to deal with because they couldn't really even try to relate to the students' emotions and the students' feelings. It was all, do this, do that. If you don't, you're a failure and you won't get anywhere in life. And they didn't really know how to talk to or deal with students who aren't neurotypical or white or straight or cisgender or anyone like that. For me, I'm on the autism spectrum and I'm trans male, so having to trying to be myself in that school was very hard. In this school, the first day I came to the school, the interview, I was immediately asked so do you want to do you want us to use another name or do you want to use your government name? So I could and when I told Charlie that I want to use the name Lucas, he immediately put that as my name in the document. That was very nice. It's very different from my last school, not just because it's a democratic school, but I'm happier to wake up every morning and go to school. I could never be like that in my old school. In my old school, it was wake up and you have to go to school because if you don't go to school, you're a failure and everyone's gonna be mad at you. But in this school, I'm waking up and I'm just excited to go to school and learn new things and study because I'm given the freedom to study what I want, and that's really amazing for me because if I just force myself to do something, then nothing good is gonna come out of it. It feels like I can be friends with pretty much almost anyone here. In this school, everyone is united, kind of. There isn't sure there's friend groups and groups divided in classes, but overall it's we all understand each other and we can talk to each other. There's really no judgment at all.
Our needs, well, specialists. There are some kids who struggle with their past experiences of bullying, of being smashed by insensitive adults, and need to come to terms with their own value. And for that, they need also support personnel who is ready to listen to them, who is not only ready to deliver a content and assess it in very individualistic ways, but rather to take the time to get to know the person, to talk, to provide also clues on how to deal with this. These kind of projects need time They need time to start building the school culture. In our case, we started with 65 kids, which presented extra challenges. And I think that something which is missing besides funds and resources is the connection or the support of higher institutions, higher education institutions, through universities, to start to understand what are the real effects of sharing decisions with young people, of instead of focusing on the content, focusing on the development of the skills, on what are the effects at the citizenship level. How do these kind of kids behave whenever they are facing a challenge in terms of ethics? This, I feel, it is truly important. And definitely, well, for these projects to work, to be able to exist, the community needs to be contained. Maximum, I would say, 150 to 100 students. It cannot really grow massively. So in that sense, it requires an opportunity to try different possibilities, as Derry Hannam says, to become pioneers of possibilities, and also support other schools in time or other communities that are interested in a similar approach. It's close to this. A place where people are not afraid to speak out, where people feel relaxed, where they want to come, when they know that they would get support if they have difficulties, perhaps in a warmer weather. But yeah, Suvemae is very close to what I thought could be an alternative educational path for kids, balancing between freedoms and responsibilities without ignoring each other. I feel that's important. You need to explore. What does that mean? That means that you check Europic, you check perhaps Wikipedia.
Wow!
You check. Whoa. You don't use it as your only source, which is different.
Charlie, are you okay? Are you sick? Are you feeling well?
Yes, I'm sick. I was checking how many entries can be made to Wikipedia on a single day. Guess.
At least
Million? Or million?
Maybe like 5,000.
Only one software can make up to 10,000 entries on a single day. The question is, do you have certainty that Wikipedia has as many people checking those entries to notice that it is fake or is true?
No.
So it is not actually very reliable, but it can give you an idea of what the topic is about. It cannot be your source. 7, right? Not 1 point. What could be the other 4?
Ma teen teile selle lubatud kirjandite tagasiside, kus ma siis, ma ei tea, arvutan, teen teile natuke statistikat ja värki. Ja siis pärast me teeme. People are so different that this is a place where the differences are like taken in consideration. You can build your strengths, you can build on that, you can follow your interests. You don't have to sit and wait for your turn, or like you can take control of your life here, or start practicing it once you need it in real life when you become an adult. So I would say this is the reason why this option should be at least on the table.
You have your freedom, but you cannot overuse it. Before winter, I really used my freedom a lot, and I regretted it a lot because I was behind so many tasks, and I just simply felt like really, pressured that I had to do these tasks, but I just didn't have the time to do them.
Yeah, it was your. You understood that you were misusing the freedom?
Yes.
So was your personal, then...
It wasn't only my personal, it was also because the teachers noticed. And then we had to sit down and talk because I was overusing my freedom and it was too much. Now I realize that it's just easier to get these things done and just get it over with. So I feel like if I would still be in a normal school, then I would be very different of what I am right now.
Yes, I think especially now after 3 complete years,
yes.
We definitely see change, especially in those who are here at least more than 2 years. Yeah.
So it's a process that takes time, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those who already were comfortable with the social interactions, they are mostly developed more in skills of study skills and so on, but also many of them become much more comfortable socially here. But somebody's look from outside at what we do, at what we as adults do, and what the students are doing, like a very objective point of view.
Right.
Because if we between each other discussing and your opinion, my opinion, it's like become very personal, subjective. But the person from outside, and not one person, but couple of people, then it becomes different because that person doesn't have individual involvement in this. It must be a brave principle like ours, who would be ready to experiment. But I feel on the other side, every teacher could try that in their class.
Okay, tell us about this. So.
No, ma tegin selle kõlari põhimõtteliselt paar kuud tagasi. Ma eile panin siia 2 uut kõlarit juurde. See kõlar ja see kõlar mängib suht kõvasti. See tegelikult on suht taaskasutatud kõlarid, sest et kõik, mis siin sees on, ma võtsin need kusagilt välja, paar asja ma tellisin AliExpressist. Et kõlarid sain üldse suht tasuta ja kõik on suht lahe.
Amazing. Yeah. Can you put it on? Can we?
Yes. I make it 4 or 5 hours for a day.
No way.
You did it at home or here?
On my robotica.
Robotics. Works good. Do you like being in the school?
Yes. It's very... Päris lahe kool. Et mulle meeldib siin olla. Ma käisin proovinädalal suures majas. Yes. We have homeworks, but really vähe. Low.
Here?
I have more time to do stuff.
That you like?
Yes.
I think we have to understand the generation that is coming to our school. When we understand, and then we understand that we cannot teach them the same way that we were taught. The pupils really, after this possibilities to choose, and if they see different teachers and different learning methods, then they value this teacher being present and their knowledge really, really well. So I think this year you have to let go, get the chaos, and then you can get back the structure. So if we see that the child is broken down or something terrible happens, then we suggest to go to the democratic education, and then they are a year there, and then they're okay, and they come back, and they are ready to learn again. And I see that this time off doesn't affect their learning outcomes. So this is also something that is really difficult for teachers to understand, that they think that they must have every day, learn every day, but really to give a brain some free time, or maybe the child to understand again where are they, what they want. So, and then they come back, and then they have a new motivation, and then they learn it again. It's all brain chemistry. So a lot of neurosciences, new information is given. So this is also what the directors of schools might look into and understand that the brain, now we understand how the brain learns. So, but this already again gives us different ways of to understand and think about learning process. So we cannot do it like we did it 200 years ago. Yeah, but I'm saying it's not easy. I have really good teachers who have left the school because they don't want to do it like that. And then I have some teachers who are fighting us that this is not the proper way to go. And then we have teachers who understand and work with us.
You've only got to listen to the kids that you interviewed to hear them talking about learning to make use of freedom, learning to take responsibility, having some means by which if they're bullied, they can bring that to the attention of the meeting, the community, and stop it. The girl, I think she was from Iraq, I forget her name, she'd had a hell of a life, and listening to her, I've heard so many kids tell that story. Getting into this environment, I feel safe. If I'm bullied, if I'm not understood, there's something I can do about it. I have some agency and autonomy, and that's so important. And Charlie's clearly established a culture where the kids feel that that's how things are. That's amazing. The next thing is first of all, how does it survive? Because I think there's a big job to be done in the academic world, researching and disseminating what's been going on at Suvemäe. Well, I think you've not got to hide your light under a bushel too much. At first, I really understand him wanting to make it work without attracting too much attention and too much fuss. But now he needs attention. I keep meeting people and I tell them about Suvemäe and they've never heard of it. I was talking to an academic from Denmark. He said, wow, this is one of the most important things going on in Europe as far as I'm concerned. Why don't we know about it? Well, I think that is Charlie's next big job and your filmmaking is going to help. Obviously, terribly important. I mean, what I think is wonderful about having the film is you can say, look, here it is. It works. It's happening.
That's it, yeah.
Listen to what those kids are saying about their learning.
Exactly.
Oh, and look at that kid who's built a sound system out of junk. Having a generation of kids who've just failed examinations is not what we need. Or having a generation of kids with very high levels of anxiety who've just highly achieved in examinations and can't bear the thought of not getting 101% in every test. We've got to stop all that and create a generation that's capable of creatively addressing the future. And that's not an anti-academic point, but it's the point that Charlie makes in the film. We've got to be thinking about the soft skills, the relationship skills, the empathy skills, things actually that on the whole computers are no good at. A lot of the things we force kids to do in school and make them feel failures if they can't are things that computers could be doing for us anyway, and that artificial intelligence will be doing for us. We've got to be thinking about how to create systems that help kids create a sustainable, livable in future. To do that, kids have got to have the space to take control of their own learning. They've got to learn what their own individual talents, passions, questions, concerns. They've got to learn about what they are and how to address them. And for that, they need time and space in schools. I mean, one thing we're going to have to cope with, we're almost certainly going to see higher levels of unemployment in the future. The number of people who are going to have full-time, well-paid jobs with pensions at the end is already disappearing, and it's going to continue to disappear. And it seems to me we're going to need universal basic income, UBI of some kind. Now, how are people going to learn to make good use of their time if they've been told what to do every minute of the day in school? So we have to have a school system that prepares people to take responsibility for the future, but also to cope for a future where employment opportunities are reduced, where they can make good use of their own lives and manage the communities in which they live. That actually doing something to participate and take responsibility democratically for your own local community is so important. And the best place to learn this, and we know it can be learned because we've seen Charlie doing it on the film, the obvious place to do this is school, where all the kids are. So we need democratic schools with opportunities for self-directed learning, where the kids learn that they matter as individuals and that they are capable, have the agency to take a responsible part in managing their communities.
This experience offers a very valuable gift to students, and once it is given to them, it can never be taken away. It is the possibility to reconnect with their sense of self and their self-worth, with themselves and with the community. And then after, if they go back to the normal school system or any future system they will encounter, they will have the keys to this resilience, which will give them the feeling that they can deal with anything that comes up.
School Instagram.
Awesome.
Follow SUVEMAE.TKG.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me to be in an interview.
Awesome.
Many traditions in this world. They want us to be peaceful. And yes, peaceful is one of a very high goal. I would also like this world. Then there it is, something that we call choice.